men's selfishness and entitlement comes out so much in their hobbies. Their hobby. You're at this point again, almost exactly 1 year later where this conversation is coming up. And this time it's around marathon. Now, why is there not such a term as a marathon husband? Because they don't exist. Because women rarely have spare time because of so much labor that is expected from them in the home, in the world at large. So if they actually have time to run a marathon, I promise you, most of them are still doing all the things that they're supposed to do at home. But men, on the other hand, that's not the case at all. Oh, before I forget, join my Patreon if you want to see stuff about living in France, or if you want to see some random stuff, even the free tiers, I share some stuff sometimes. If you want to be at my lives, if you want to hear deeper stories, go to my Patreon. Also, make sure that you're subscribed, hit the notifications so that you actually see my work. Comment, share, tell me what you think about anything I'm saying, because all that really helps. And thank you for being here. Okay, promotion over. So everybody's been asking me to talk about this marathon husband. Sorry, that doesn't exist. A man married to a woman who's running a marathon, and how he actively tried to sabotage that by literally encouraging her children at the finish line, the most critical part of the race, to go up and hug mommy, as if her mom guilt alone isn't working against her for all of the time that she's not with her kids, because that mom guilt is so strong. Men will weaponize mother's mom guilt. I had never realized that was a thing until so many people in my life became mothers, and I'm like, can you do anything right? Because whatever voice, whatever little like judge, here we go, Judge Judy voice in your head that's like, you're a bad mom. She is so loud, and she never leaves you alone, right? Never. She's always got something to say about your parenting. And if she doesn't say it, that voice in your head that patriarchy put there, and then all of the other people who reinforce that voice, then some other mom will be like, did you make your baby's food? I did. Because parenting, apparently under capitalism, or at least in the US, I don't know if it's as bad other places, but in the US, competitive mothering is a thing where mothers shame each other for things that are none of their business. And so that mom guilt is already there. And then it's got to amplify by the community, by other mothers, by their husbands who push their kids to go hug mommy when she's at the end of this very, very long process of training for a marathon that she probably obviously worked very hard for, or she wouldn't have done so well. So the fact that women get to run marathons at all is a miracle. Now, I'm going to go over an article that was written about this about 6 months after I started talking about it. I actually had to private most of my videos about marathon men because I was getting so much hate and so trolled so hard that I just wanted those people out of my life and I didn't want my stuff going to their algorithm. And I didn't want my second account to almost get banned. First one is still privated a year later. Mostly because of me talking about men's hobbies and how selfish they are in their hobbies, and how that's how they financially abuse their wives, or by spending endless tens of thousands of dollars on all these boats and cars and pew-pews and climbing gear and marathon gear. And even if they're not actually spending money on this stuff, they're spending time, and time is value. And every hour that man is not in the home, because he's got to run every day for hours, usually at very inconvenient times for families, all that time that he feels entitled to go do the thing that makes him feel like a big boy and a big strong man, all the time he's doing that, she is covering for him. And most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, those very men would never do that for her. So we're going to get into some examples. But as I've said before, literally in multiple videos, and as somebody who knows many women who have been married to men who run marathons, every man before he runs a marathon, every person in a couple should, talk about it with their spouse, because that spouse is going to be making a lot of sacrifices. But I promise you, because of the entitlement that men feel to their free time, that they don't afford the women in their lives because they take it all, Those men have not even thought about the impact that their choice to go run a marathon, which is time consuming, or go, get into climbing, which is time consuming, or whatever. They either A, they don't think about the impact, or B, don't care, or C, both, all of the above. So I actually like the way that this woman handled it. Let's get into it first before I get into the New York Times article that gave words to the things that I've been talking about for a long time on these platforms. So I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to get a copyright violation and be demonetized for this video. But just in case you haven't seen this, mom runs down the hill, doing great. Dad is right there before the finish line, not after, before. That was a very intentional choice. And then he literally pushes his children to go towards mom. She is barreling down the end of a marathon, and he sends his kids not only to go, kind of give a microphone to the mom guilt voice, but also puts the kids in harm's way. You think pushing your kids into the line of marathon runners is really a smart thing to do or a safe thing to do? Because most marathons, especially in big cities where there are lots of people, there's a reason why there's like barricades and people get hurt. Those people are running so fast, you do not jump out in front of a marathon, especially children. Why would you push your children? There's people around her anyway. I hope those kids were okay for all of those hours that you were training, because it seems like dad has poor judgment. But my guess is that like most women who run marathons, she probably got up at the crack of dawn to do her training, or while they were at school or something, because most women, and I use these words intentionally, most women would not be allowed to take time out from parent time to go do something for themselves, the way men have no problem doing, right? Like either the man will be like, I'm not doing that, or if she goes for her run and leaves him alone with the kids for a couple hours, how much you want to bet she's going to come back to a mess, more work? Or, the kids haven't done something, or they've been watching the TV the entire time. Something so that this man says loud and clear through very passive aggressive, but very calculated actions that we now have words for called weaponized incompetence and all those other things. The message is loud and clear. Don't you ever leave me alone with my kids, because I don't want to babysit my own children. And I say babysit instead of parent because that is the mentality of so many fathers. They don't actually want to spend time with their kids. They don't even like their kids all that much, but they like them when it's on their term. Much like women. They like women when it's on their term. I swear to God, a woman called me, like one of my friends, and she was dating, and she'd been talking to this guy, and she goes, do men just want a dog? Because I feel like this guy that wants me to hang out literally just wants me to hang out next to him like a dog. Like he wants me to just watch what he wants to watch, just keep him company, just be near him. But he doesn't want to do anything fun. He doesn't really care about I want to do it. And I was like, that's a really great way to put it. Other than extracting labor that they feel entitled to because you're their new mother, if they haven't really done that work of unpacking patriarchy and all the things that they've been taught they should expect from a woman in the home and the labor she will provide, right? And yeah, in addition to free domestic labor, a therapist, a secretary to plan their whole social life and everything, you are also a dog who's supposed to sit next to them and watch them watch TV. Don't do it. Get your separate room, your own TV, watch what you want to do. But this little thing right here, maybe it was just a one-timer, but putting those children at the very end, when you are literally like, everything comes down to this moment, and he's like, go say hi to mommy. Go say hi to mommy, kids. Little kids who could get trampled and hurt by a runner. And I love how she handles it. She just basically kind of like, that doesn't push them away, but it's like, nope, and just keeps running. And then she celebrates. This tweet right here said, I love this. I don't have words to describe how much I hate this husband. Let her have one thing without mom guilt. And I love following this woman too. This is how you deal with men like this, by the way. Leave them there in their sabotage alone. hug your work husband and ignore your husband with his hands in the air. If he doesn't stop being her hater, he's going to be receiving divorce papers. Y'all know I did a whole video yesterday about men being our biggest haters. And if your partner, if you are married, if your husband or your boyfriend is not your biggest cheerleader, not your biggest fan, he probably is your biggest hater and will sabotage your career, your marathon, any of your creative endeavors, because he's jealous, he hates himself, he doesn't know what to do with all that entitlement and hate. Marathon runners that are men are very selfish. So whenever I see women running a marathon, I am like, good for you. Good for you for prioritizing your time and demanding that you have some time. And honestly, I think some women end up running marathons as the only way she can get the fuck out of the house. Because so many women's hobbies are expected to be centered around something at home, knitting, painting, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's men who get to do things outside the home. Do you ever wonder why there's no such thing as a golf widower? I heard all this every time I started talking about these hobbies things. And literally that is what almost got me banned from TikTok, was talking about men's hobbies and how selfish they are and how much they financially and time-wise abuse their partners. Because some of these men may have money, but just like the hobosexuals, they're gold diggers for time. Gold diggers for time, gold diggers for money, and they will financially abuse you in all the ways possible. Cecilia Regina did a video yesterday about, or she's done many for a long time, about men putting endless labor on their wives so that they literally have no extra time. Like, not only just like making women redo their chores that they're already doing, that he should be doing half of them too, but literally like, no, I don't like it this way. Just giving them endless work. The less free time you have, the less you are going to demand things because you're so busy you can't keep up. These are such a perfect case study of the way men exploit the labor of their partners, and then the way women approach marathon running versus the way men approach it. So this came out back right before the New York City Marathon back in the fall. One partner runs the marathon, the other does everything else. So right out of the gate, they have this woman they interview, and her husband runs marathon. And she says, after he gets home from like a 2-hour run, he wanted to talk about his run, to show me the stats, how far he ran, what was his pace, all the splits, his heart rate through the splits, and the elevation. Don't care, don't care, don't care. No one but a runner would care about this. I was doing something a bit more important, she said, like work. I so admire this woman for giving this interview. I'm curious if they are still married because she dragged this man. Good for you. So this brings me to another point of mine. And I noticed this when I was a big climber. I still climb sometimes, but I have hypermobility stuff and a lot of issues, so it makes it really harder for me to do. But I still enjoy it when I can. But I was a big climber for a while, and I hung out with climbers for weeks on end because I was an outdoor adventure educator. And on our days off, we would climb, and sometimes we'd have a few weeks off between trips. And so we'd all hang out in Joshua Tree or somewhere else and climb. And I remember sitting around the campfire. You don't have TV. I didn't have TV. Didn't have smartphones. Literally, it was just us. It was just humans and our creativity and curiosity that kept us entertained. And I just remember being so bored by the conversations when I was hanging out with only climber men, because the amount of time these men would talk about the gear and, you know, this cam and that cam and this route and that route and that. I was like, I want to talk about climbing. Can we talk about something else? I'm so bored. But whatever, at least I could speak the language, at least I cared about some of it, but I just wanted more depth. But when a man who runs a marathon does not have other marathon runners to talk about this stuff and doesn't have a lot of other friends, which, as y'all know, literally wrote a viral article about this, men have no friends and women bear the burden. So men don't have friends, so you better hope they get some runner friends so they can blah, 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 run, gear with them, because the women don't want to hear this crap. But a lot of men don't have friends, so they come home and they just info dump all this crap about their run. And what is she supposed to do? He might as well be talking to himself. This was one of the most annoying things that I have heard from people I know who are married to marathon runners, but they handled it well. They said, I'm not going to listen. Don't talk to me about your running anymore. I don't want to hear it. Sorry. I've listened to so much of it. So I'm not saying that these men are terrible people. I am saying If they're not constantly questioning themselves and their entitlement, they're going to do this. Climb, 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 fish, 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 run, 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 brr, 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 brr. And if you let them, they will just talk at you like this, and you might as well not be there. And like I said in a video recently, one of the things I realized with my dad when he would tell stories when he was drunk is that me sitting there listening to something, I wasn't even there, and it made me very resentful and made me feel invisible. Because he wasn't having a conversation with me, he's just saying crap at me, and that makes me feel not respected, not seen, not even necessary. I could just put a blow-up doll. Like, men are not only going to need little Meg's dolls, they're going to need a blow-up, or just get a dog. Put a dog on the couch and let him tell the dog everything about his time running. You don't have to listen to this, because let's turn the tables. Would he sit there and listen to you talk about anything you care about that he knows nothing about for endless hours? Let's just say, I'm going to throw it out there. You love Love is Blind. Do you think he would let you talk about Love is Blind for an hour or longer every day? Unless he was watching it too? No. And you know why? Because he doesn't care. And we really could learn a lot from men. I love listening to my husband talk about things he cares about, but he doesn't do this. Right? He loves listening to me talk about things I love, but I also don't do this. And if I sense that he's like over it, or if he senses that I'm over it, we will take that cue and be like, okay. So many men, and I hear this all the time from women, they don't talk with their partners, they talk at their partners. They're just monologuing, and that's what this is. It'd be interesting if it was something she cared about, but it's not. You don't have to listen to this. You can say, that's great, but I'm gonna go. That's great. Why don't you share that with your running buddy? That's great. Now can I talk to you for an hour about crochet, about painting, about writing my novel, about origami, about pole dancing, or any of the things and if he won't do the same for you, don't do this. You do not owe men your time if they're not respecting yours. This is where we can stop enabling men, okay? Because it's dishonest. It's dishonest for me to sit there and pretend like I care about this crap, and meanwhile I'm getting resentful and starting to really dislike my partner because he won't shut up, when I'm not saying, hey, I don't actually want to hear about this anymore. You talk about it all the time. Can you please share with someone else? If I don't say that, then this man is going to start feeling that I don't like him, and he's not going to know why. The boundary is not for him, it's for you. I don't want to listen to this after 10 minutes, so I'm not going to. Since her husband of 7 years started running marathons in the fall of 2020, he has run 2 marathons and 7 half marathons in the last 2 years. So it's 2024. This was in 2023. So in 3 years, this man has run this much. If you could do the math, you would not believe how many hours this is. One of my good friends, a woman, single, I really learned a lot about her, about marathons, from just her talking about how much she had to train, and then she had to work it into her life. But guess what? Someone didn't have to accommodate that. Marathon running is a lot of sacrifice. Look at this. His training has taken over the household. I would argue any hobby that men do, especially if they're doing it really selfishly, even fantasy football or anything like that, will take over the household if you don't stand up for your right to spare time, your right to not have to be pulled into this crap. So now let's talk about something else that's a big issue. She sometimes has to make 2 dinners, what she wants and what he needs for nourishment. He will have pasta, and at the beginning I joined him, but now I have to make something separate for myself because you can't eat all those carbs if you're not running. Now, let's see if the tables were turned. If this is a woman doing this, do you honestly think a man would make 2 dinners? Some men would. Some men would, because they care about their partners. But I would argue most of them would not. They would feed themselves and feed the kids, maybe leave you some leftover or whatever. I don't know. But stop making 2 dinners. They make their own dinner. They chose to sign up for this marathon. You did not. Pasta is the easiest thing in the world to make. They can make their own. They boil water and it cooks itself. Like, sorry, but so many men, literally, this is why I did that deep dive on that what's his butt. That dude who ended up being like emotionally abusive and gave women like STI. That Andrew what's his butt, who's like a scientist, and say, oh, look at the sun, like that whole deep dive I did on that. And guess what? There was like Huberman wives. Is that his name? Huberman wives. Why do you think there's golf wives, which they call golf widows, because that's how rarely these men are home. There's runner wife, marathon wife. There's all these things. Why? Because when men get excited about something, they become obsessed. Not all of them, but when men are obsessed with something, you need to treat it like an addiction, because a lot of times if they're not really working on themselves, if they're not really working on their inner stuff, if they've got any childhood trauma, all people could benefit from some sort of mental health help, therapy, group support, whatever. I know it's more accessible to some people than others, but there's also a lot of resources that are free or whatever. Okay, I know that there's access problem, but so many men, instead of working on why they hate their mom because their dad left them, or why, I don't know, they feel dead inside all the time, instead of actually questioning what is going on here. Why do I want to cheat on my wife? Why do I want to blow up my marriage? Why do I want to this or that or that? Or why do I want to die and I'm going to punish her for me hating myself? Instead of being like doing some really hard work, very scary work, it takes a lot of courage to look within, they decide to climb Everest or run the New York City Marathon or become a climber and are gone all the time and do really reckless, dangerous things that then puts their entire family in danger, because if he's the sole, if he's the bread, whatever you call it, if he's the main source of income and he gets hurt on his little climbing buddy trip, the whole family's screwed, and now his wife has to take care of somebody who had fallen and has a broken back now or whatever. I am telling you, the men's choices impact their family and especially their wives more than anybody, and they don't even think to ask, do you mind if I do this? Let's talk about how it's going to impact you. Let's talk about dinner. Let's talk about childcare. Let's talk about because look at all this stuff, y'all. Just here's a reminder. So she has to eat a different dinner. She probably eats at a different time, but who knows? After dinner, he usually moans about whatever muscle hurts that day. So if he's not talking to her about all this crap she doesn't want to know about the sprints, the blah, 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 gear, that, then he's like, my muscle hurts, even though I chose to do this. And then he's running so much and he's so exhausted after that, there's less time for fun. Date nights and hanging out with friends are now scheduled around his stupid training schedule. I added the word stupid. Now, of course, she has to say this. I'm proud of my husband. He understands. She understands the mental and physical health benefits of running. But if you do too much of this, it's actually not that healthy. It's called escapism. It's called your knees. I had to quit running a long time. I would just run for exercise. I never ran a marathon. That stuff is really hard on your knees. When you have knee problems and have to get a hip replaced or who's going to take care of you? All the choices that men make, how they treat their body, whether they exercise or whether they don't exercise, what they eat, how much they drink, what they smoke, if they do any, or any of those things, any of the dangerous reckless behavior. They decide to take up motorcycle riding. If they want to lead climbs, but they don't want to wear their helmet. Everything they do will directly impact the women in their life. Unless they are gay and are married to a man or, whatever, non-binary. I'm talking about, this is like the dynamic of cis-het relationships, okay? In most cis-het relationships, it's the wife or girlfriend who is going to pay much bigger price for every decision this man makes. In terms of being his caregiver, in terms of their income, in terms of parenting, and all the things that he does that takes up time and impacts them and their finances and all that stuff. And a lot of these men will go out and buy a new pair of shoes, but won't let her buy new shoes for their kids. I am telling you, the way men spend money, women should almost always be in charge of the money, because it's been proven they put the family before themselves and men don't. Not all men, hashtag, okay? And if they're not married, guess who's going to take care of them when they get sick? It's not hard. Their mom, their sister, their female friends. It's going to be a woman. When men get injured or sick, and if they're cishet men, I promise you, it is a woman who is going to swoop in Just like whenever men get divorced, all of a sudden out of nowhere, all these women come and help him out while the single mom has almost no help. Every time he is a widow, every time he gets hurt, you'll all of a sudden have a harem of women who want to make sure he's okay because he can't clean or cook or do anything for himself, even though he would literally never do that for her. I learned this the hard way when I was a ski instructor in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, tore my ACL. The women came out of the woodwork. I didn't even know some of them very well, to bring me tea, to bring me my meds, to take me to the hospital, all this stuff, checking in on me. My guy friends did nothing. They skied. They didn't even see if I was okay the day I had surgery. And my sister told me, you need women friends. Do not count on men to show up and be there for you when you need them. And boy, was she right. Now, there have been exceptions, but she's talking about cishet men who have not ever questioned this stuff and like just, they don't make good friends. That's why they don't have friends. Their guy friends aren't going to show up for them unless it involves doing something fun or escapism or doing something manly to help them out. Their male friends are not going to show up and nurse them back to health, shower them, go get their male friends don't do this usually. You can tell how evolved a man is and how good of a partner he will be by the way he provides care and an emotional labor for his male friends. If all he does is this stuff, you are going to be the only person to take care of this man when the consequences of his poor decision making finally that rooster comes to whatever. That's not a rooster, that's a turkey. Whatever the saying is, when his day comes where he gets hurt, they will all disappear and it's on you. So be very concerned if you are married to or dating and living with a man who is this selfish, and especially if he's reckless. You are going to be a hospice wife. Thank you, Candace Kelly, for that term. Without ever even signed up for that, even if he's your age, even if he's younger. I just think there needs to be an acknowledgement that there are sacrifices the spouse makes. I think we should start a support group. I'm telling y'all, men who do not work on themselves, question themselves, don't nurture their relationships with other people, don't know how to give back to the community, don't do that stuff, that really hard work of being an adult who cares for your community, they will treat everything they care about like an addiction. And you'll be going to like Al-Anon or some other support group. Like you literally will have to act the way women who are married to addicts act and literally find a support to how to deal with this nightmare. Because it's a nightmare. When men become obsessed with something and put it above you and your family, that's one reason I wrote I should go over this article about climbing. I watched the Washington Post. Most of the women I know who are climbers refuse to date climbers because of this right here. Climbers, marathon runners, they're all doing the same thing. They are married to adventure. They are married to climbing. They're married to their marathon, but they are not married to you. And so not only are they just going on and on about this crap, now she has to go and spend her time. If you don't set boundaries with these men, you're going to be so bitter that then you are going to need to talk about it with someone. And this is how, when women don't stand up to the men in their life, they end up making other women who don't center men have to center men by proxy. Because if you are not directly confronting the man exploiting you, and then you go and complain to all your friends about all the ways he's doing that, and you just keep complaining, now they got to listen to this crap. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you shouldn't be there for your friends and that you shouldn't discuss, but I swear so many of the things that women end up realizing that when we get shamed for talking about men so much, and I hate it because the reason why sometimes, yes, we're talking about men because of our own conditioning to center them, but a lot of times women are talking about men so much, sometimes it's just to complain and get it off their chest, and then they move on and they keep expecting the same thing, and it's literally like now they're using their friends as to kind of to put a bandage on a wound, right? But it doesn't mean talking to your friends is bad. What ends up happening, and if it's not just to complain, women have to talk to other women about, what is this? Am I wrong? Do you have so many women who will call their friends and be like, I feel like this isn't fair. This is what he's doing. He's gone on la la la. And then women have to be like, no, that's not fair. And so they have to figure out, like, Am I gaslighting myself, or am I being too hard? Am I being unfair? Why do you think all of the am I the a-hole stories on Reddit, the women's stories are crazy? They're like, he's doing this and this. Am I that? And people are like, no, right? So we've been so taught to gaslight ourselves and accept unacceptable behavior and enable men and just to let them get away with everything, that we actually have to talk this through with our friends. What should I do? How do I deal with this? So I'm happy to show up in that capacity to help my friends get straight on what the real problem is so they can then do a solution the same way I do, right? Instead, because sometimes I am being like really delusional, and so I like to check things. So I'm not saying, just turn your back on your friend. What I am saying is that when this problem goes on and on and on and on, and this man does not change his behavior, and the women do not address this problem, now all the women in her life are forced to deal with this man being so selfish, like how much time they listen on the phone and have to process this and talk about it and problem solve. Because this man, when men are being selfish, it doesn't just impact the woman that he's dating or married to. It impacts everyone who cares about her. And of course his children too. So just in case you aren't familiar with what marathon running takes up, 4 to 5 runs a week, including a long one that is over 10 miles, plus the diet, carbon loading, no greasy food or alcohol. But it's not just the runners feeling the burn. People in relationships with runners do too. Adjusting their lives as they contend with absence, spent otherwise obsessed partners. So you're dealing with the food, you're dealing with exhausted, dealing with people talking about their injuries all the time, and they're just gone and they're obsessed. They're like, I can't tell you. There's currently someone I know right now who is living this, and she literally came to me. I think I'm the only person who understood it because I know so many women who've dealt with this. She was like, it feels like an addiction. I'm like straight up worried. And I'm like, it is an addiction. You literally, the same way I say relationships are addictions, the way a lot of women don't realize. I'm not saying women aren't the only ones who do this. But I find that a lot of women who just won't leave men who are terrible, a lot of times it's almost like they're addicted to them. The same way these men are addicted to an escapism. And the way it's one thing to be passionate, to care about something, to, have a challenge, a goal, but men are not taught to consider their impact on anyone else. And women are told to think too much about how everything we do impacts other people, so that we don't even know what we like, what we want, what we want to do if we did have extra time, which men rob from us all the time. So I think women should run more marathons. Go for it. Run a marathon. That will literally create a boundary so that you get a couple hours. But I promise you, most of women, when they do that, they have to get up at like 3 a.m. to do it, which isn't always safe. So men have this privilege of being able to run early in the morning if they do actually accommodate their partners, where a lot of women are like, I don't want to run when it's dark. Being a partner of a marathon runner, you feel like you are also in training. Now, I would argue it's not saying that if a man is married to a woman, he doesn't feel this too, but he is not going to feel it as much as her in most situations, because men, it doesn't operate that way in marriages unless men are actively every day questioning their entitlement to free labor from women. This one woman, her partner has been training for the last 10 years. For her, it's his one-track, running-obsessed mind that has posed particular challenges. Running is his passion. So when we're out to dinner with his friends, it turns into a talk about stacks and Strava and some new running shoes he gets and how many gets he needs to buy, blah, 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 blah. After about 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, honey, we had this conversation yesterday. Good for you. Good for you. This is what more women need to do. Being like, I'm not going to talk about this with you. I'm not going to listen to it either. We talk about something else. She was happy when her husband joined a running club so he could have an outlet. What is that about? Do y'all remember the Saturday Night Live sketch called Dog Park that Vanity Fair credited my article about men not having friends with being the inspiration to that? That women are like, go honey, go take the dog to the dog park. Go play pickleball. Go do this. Go make some friends. Play. You please. I don't want to be your only friend. So she was happy he found running, but she didn't know what she was getting into. That's like encouraging a man to go start drinking, and he's at the bar all the time and has a hangover from running and can't. Whatever. You can do whatever. Overall, she tries to remind herself the benefits of running that gives her partner. I do think without running, he might go slightly mad. And mental health is very important. Do not be fooled by this. Do you think men would put themselves through all of this so that you don't go mad? No. See, this is what women do. We will let men do anything as an outlet, as a way to make him feel good about himself. We will sacrifice endlessly so that this man, his mental health is good, because when he's not doing good, we're not doing good. If he's in a bad mood all the time, especially if he's a dad, as soon as he comes in the house, everyone's walking on eggshells, and that's how women get sick being married to these men. And this is how children grow up being afraid of their dad, because even if he never lays a hand on them or yells at them, his mood is exhausting. I call it the quiet rage. Virginia Woolf wrote about this all the time. Her dad was like this. It basically unalived her mother and her stepsister or whatever. Moody men are the worst. We have a word for it, weaponized moodiness. I'm not saying that women can't be this way. Of course they can. I've known some of these women and they are a nightmare to be around too. But men are bigger. They have more money. They have more power. They have more control. And when you're in a marriage with one of these dudes and he's not in a good mood, everybody pays a price. So of course she's like, go run, ha, go run. But guess what? You know what these wives also worry about is what happens if he gets hurt. And they're not even thinking about taking care of him. The caregiving part, they're thinking, is he going to be suicidal if he can't run anymore? Because as somebody who is deep in the climbing world, this was a big concern. When men couldn't climb anymore, they became addicts. Not always, but they drove crazy anyone who had to be in a house with them because they don't know what to do without this fix. So either they're just a nightmare to be around or they start drinking all the time. And women are so afraid that these men are going to be unhinged without an outlet because we're so concerned about their mental health, more concerned than they are about their own, because they will do the real work to deal with this. What is behind this? Why are they going to go mad if they don't go running? What is that about? Do they even care? Do they go to a therapist if they can afford it? Do they talk to other men? Do they do anything about it? Or they decide, I know, I'm going to climb Everest and I'm going to die on that mountain, right? This is why when this whole lonely male crisis and men's mental health, y'all don't care about ours. You know what impact a man with bad mental health has on all the women and kids he has power over? Let me tell you, it's a nightmare. So women care more about men's mental health and will do all this to make sure he doesn't go mad. But would he ever do this for her? I promise you, no. Most of them would not. And if you are with a man who has poor mental health and will not do anything about it, you will pay the price. You will suffer more than he ever will. I promise you. You will clean up after him and all of his self-harming, self-sabotaging, escapism crap. He's going to drain your bank account. He's going to give so much endless labor because he's not there because he has to go do his thing so he doesn't go mad. This is a nightmare. And this is actually a form of abuse. He may never lay a hand. He may never be violent. But this, the impact of this, men will unalive you outright or unalive you slowly through your nervous system or whatever, your immune. Like y'all know it. I always side eyes anytime a man's wife dies before him. I'm like, did you do that? Because I promise you that's what happened to my grandma. Indeed, running has proved to be again and again reduce anxiety and depression, even create a high, not dissimilar from cannabis. Ha! Interesting correlation. Running creates a similar effect to cannabis. Oh, cool. You stopped smoking all the time. Did you find something to replace that need to escape, or are you just replacing it with running? And for anyone new here, I am not judging men with addiction. I am here to help women stop centering men who refuse to deal with their addictions, because you are going to end up getting very sick and you are going to become a very bitter person. And your kids are going to suffer from your refusal to solve your own problem, which is centering this man and letting him take over the house, letting his running take over the house, letting whatever it is he's doing take over the house, your money, your time. You are going to be so angry. And even though you may be this, the little people pleaser, we have a perfect family. Out in the world with anyone you have power over, you're going to be a nightmare. You're going to be this. Or you are just going to keep taking it and taking it and taking it and taking it, and you're going to role model to your children or anyone that someone may look up to that this is totally normal. This is totally cool. It's totally cool to let a man dominate all of your time like that. I don't know about you, but I don't want to role model that to anybody. Definitely not my nieces, any of the three of them, or any of the women in my life who look to me for any kind of guidance. I do not want them to think that is normal. So it's on me to push back and refuse to do extra labor if that man would not and does not do that same energy for me. And if that man does not spend time taking care of his own mental health, taking care of himself, his body, his mind, his spirits, I will pay the price. And I work like it's an unpaid full-time job on my mental health, and I have for like 25 years now. Because when I don't, everyone suffers and I become very self-destructive. It's not very healthy for anyone in my life if I don't take care of that. And I know that, but because I'm not a man, its impact will be different because men will leave women like me unless they're codependent themselves. They need to go to therapy for whatever family system stuff they got going on. We know men leave their wives when they're sick. They're 6 times more likely. When a man gets sick, a woman is more likely to stay even if she's done. If he gets injured, she's going to stay because she'll get shunned by the community and her little mom guilt. We do that with men too. Even if we're literally not their mom, the little mom gets, and then we take care of the prince. What'll he do without me? What will he do without me? Almost got me. Guess what he'll do without me? He'll find another woman to exploit. And he did. My ex was literally cheating on me with someone else before I left him because he always has a backup plan. What will he do without me? What will he do if I don't do all this stuff? Well, why don't you give it a try and see? Because being a martyr, it's not a good look. It may give us it may help our ego and help us feel important. I don't want to be this important to any man ever again. It doesn't benefit us. We get to feel high and mighty and even morally superior, but no thanks. It's not worth it anymore. Look at this. Runners who are single can find it difficult to juggle new relationships or dating with marathon training. So if single people find it hard to find time to date, single people who don't have children at home to take care of and a wife that they should be dating still, you should be dating your spouse. No, marriage is not the finish line. Let's stay in the marathon metaphor here. A lot of men think that the wedding is the finish line. They've worked so hard to get the social capital of being a husband, and now they're going to be a dad, and now they're going to get raises at work. They're going to get respected. Now the community will respect them more. Plus, all this endless free labor. But a lot of men view that the marathon for them is finally, getting that free labor at home. And now they're done. They don't got to do anything. No. If a single person without the responsibilities of children and a partner at home to care for can't find time to go on a date, why should men who have small children be running marathons unless they have talked it over with their wives and accommodated her? So when I see a woman running a marathon, I'm like, you go. That is sometimes the only way a woman can ensure time by herself. Because most women don't have a little man cave or even a she shed to go shut the door. They're always accessible to those children if their husband is a baby. So I like that this Jason dude, he was like, I don't have time. I'm training all the time. So he finally, and also ease off alcohol. In New York City, the dating revolves around that. So he's taking a break from marathon running so he can go on a date every once in a while. So if a single man with no children and no spouse at home quits marathon running so he can go on a date about once a week now, how is it that married men somehow think that their marathons are not going to impact their wives and children? Now, this woman was like, well, I'm not giving up on dating because, of course, women do too much. She's running marathons and she's still trying to date because, women still have hope that they will, especially if they want to be moms, they can't just give up on dating. Whereas that dude's like, whatever, I can go back to dating whenever I want. And she feels running might be a good way to establish a connection with someone. I put something in my Hinge profile. Oh, honey, you don't want to marry a marathon runner. Because one of you will have to give it up. Ask any climbing couple if they have children who ends up taking care of those kids? I literally did a reported story around this, and boy, let me tell you, the husband in that climber couple never assumed that he had to make any sacrifice once the kids came. And climbing is not a very kid-friendly sport. I don't care if you are following Alex Honnold on Instagram and see him and his wife bring that little baby to the crag. It is not a kid-friendly sport. I like that this guy was supporting his wife. Jess Davis, who works, he has been taking on more child care duties. His kids are 3 and 18 months, so these are little kids. Woo! Good for you, bro. Set an example while his wife trains for the New York City Marathon. It's a time commitment. She's basically working out 5 days a week and does these really long runs on Saturday morning. But he feels it's worth it. Why? Because he probably cares about her, wants her to have some time to herself. Because my guess, mom guilt and Judge Judy doesn't let her take much time other than the running itself. Which is, again, why I love that that woman ran that marathon and she did not let those children and her husband pushing them on her stop her from getting her time and committing and finishing this really important goal that she probably worked at least 6 months, if not a year on. But this is the difference here. He also says his wife makes a point to take the children after she gets back from her runs. Go figure. Who is shocked by this? That when she gets back from taking time for herself, that she then is like, okay, I'm tap out. Your time for some time. But men don't see it this way. They go out for 5 hours of golfing or a whole weekend of climbing. And do you think when they come back, they're like, okay, I'm on kid duty for 2 whole days? No, then I go have my time, he said. She definitely makes up for it. And this herein lies is the difference. They have one more couple here. This woman says, so they have 2 kids under the age of 3. Again, woo, good luck. Every parent I see with kids that age, I'm like, I hope you make it through these years. So when her husband told her that he was going to try and qualify for a Boston Marathon, a task which requires running other races under a certain time, her first thought was, what is it going to be the impact on me and my family? How will we adjust? This should be every woman's question to herself when he says, oh, I've decided to do this. If he doesn't actually run it by you and ask for permission instead of tell you he's doing it, you need to stop and say this. How is this going to impact me and our family? Have you thought about it? Well, apparently he had. In order to not impose on his family, he decided to wake up at 5 a.m. on weekdays, and he does his shorter runs to get them in before the children wake up. That is what men should be doing. This is a great example. On weekends, when he has to do a long run, he gets up as early as 3:30 or 4 a.m. It's pitch black at that time, so he goes to the local high school runs and does la 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 la. But even when they're thoughtful about it, it still impacts her. She's grateful he's chosen to do all this stuff. She's grateful because she knows most women's husbands would not do any of this. But thank you for sharing this, because this may still takes another toll on their lives. I'm going to say the diet and all that stuff. He's in bed by 8 p.m., asleep because he's exhausted. So even when men are trying to be thoughtful about the time of the actual running itself, they got to be in bed. Sorry, babe. No time. We can't watch season 3 of What's It's What. Sorry, babe. No spicy time. Sorry, babe. I mean, these men, even when they're being super thoughtful in terms of not imposing their schedule, it still impacts her in general. Men are socialized to not think we're humans. And it plays out in every way of life until they start questioning that. The entitlement that comes with that. The dehumanization that comes with that. And it's seeing someone as a workhorse and not someone who deserves everything they deserve. Anyway, be careful if you date a marathon runner or any man who's like a little too obsessed with his hobby. He will become married to that hobby if you don't set some of your own boundaries with what you will accept and what you won't, because your time is just as meaningful and valuable as his. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, share. Sign up for my Patreon. Even the free levels, I'll share some fun things every once in a while. But for my lives and all these other things, like my more personal stories, go check it out. There's a link in the description. Thank you for being here. Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure that notifications are on and you're subscribed so that you see my stuff if you like it. Et voila!